I don't like this title. It's so generic, it could be used for any book in the series. Pair it with a picture that's not from the book, and there is no way of knowing what the book is about just by looking at the cover.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
Bess is working at Wicked, a clothing store at the mall. All the store's employees get to be in a fashion show and a music video. I think that's the main reason Bess took the job. Bess says she's always dreamed of modeling, even though she was a model in books 51 and 89. Continuity! The show is run by fashion designer Mara Morel. Her jackets have exploded in popularity ever since they were used in a music video. The jackets might be too popular. Store owner Mrs. Long warns there are shoplifters on the prowl. 9 jackets have been stolen already. Nancy asks why they don't protect the jackets. My grocery store locks up toothpaste. Surely Wicked could protect their most valuable jackets. There are 2 reasons why not. Number 1, if they protected the jackets, there would not be a mystery for Nancy to solve. Number 2, Mara insists they use a brand new security system. It's called a plastic tag. It sets off an alarm if you take the jacket out of the store. There is a wand which undoes the tags. Wicked leaves a wand sort of out in the open where anyone can reach it. They're surprised to learn the culprit is using this easy robbery tool to rob them. George sees a tall guy in an overcoat. She thinks he's cute, and she wants to meet him. Nancy and George spend a couple of days searching the entire mall, trying to find Mr. X, chasing him when they see him. This guy must be really handsome. George is normally not the kind of girl who spends half the book stalking a stranger. That's more of a Nancy thing. The culprit locks Mrs. Long in her office. Mrs. Long must be terrified of her office, because she screams endlessly while hitting the security alarm. The culprit steals a jacket during all the commotion. Not to blame Mrs. Long, but if she had waited patiently for the mall security guard, none of this would have happened. Frank Wexler is the security guard. He's not conventionally handsome, but he's intriguing and intense. Nancy can't wait to solve the case with him. Maybe go out on a date or 2. Speaking of romance, Bess is dating a guy named Dan. He asks if he can borrow $20 from her, which is a suspiciously large amount of money. Leslie Richards wins a jacket in a raffle, and the fashion show is canceled when a trash can is set on fire. This proves to be a distraction, so the culprit can steal another jacket. I must say, it's nice of the culprit to steal the jackets one by one instead of taking them all at once. That way, the book has more cliffhangers. There's another cliffhanger theft. This time, the culprit turns off the lights and runs away with the jackets. Nancy would be more upset, but Frank squeezed her hand in the darkness. He's so considerate. Leslie's jacket is stolen from her in the parking lot. Bess says that's normal for River Heights Mall. You can expect at least 1 mugging a week here. I am shocked people still go to this mall. Honestly, between the fires, the muggings, and rampant theft, this sounds like a place to avoid. Nancy finds Leslie at the arcade. She's making out with Craig Jordan, the maintenance man. Nancy asks about the mugging. Leslie gets mad at Nancy's questions. She refuses to go to the police. Leslie threatens Nancy, and her tough friends step in to beat Nancy up. Like I said, this mall sounds like a place to avoid. The book pays lip service to the fact that Nancy's a karate master. Whenever she gets in big trouble, Frank comes to rescue her. That's what happens here. Nancy's so grateful he saved her from angry teenagers. The next day, Nancy sees a loading truck. Craig and Mr. X explore inside it. Nancy checks it out. She finds Leslie's backpack with Dan's contact information. The truck driver starts driving away. Nancy's trapped inside, and it starts filling with noxious exhaust fumes. Why does this mall use deadly delivery trucks? Nancy escapes by banging on the wall until the driver stops and lets her out. Nancy sees a woman with a jacket. The woman says she bought her jacket in the parking lot from a man with a blue anchor tattoo. I kind of love how the big break in the case comes from asking a random stranger for help. Nancy returns Leslie's backpack. Leslie admits she and her boyfriend faked the mugging. That way she could sell the jacket for money. I think you can sell things without being mugged first, but whatever. Leslie runs away in fear when Nancy asks about Dan. River Heights Mall makes the news as the most robbed mall in the country. I'm not surprised. I guess we're at the end of the book because Nancy starts clearing suspects left and right after this. Mara is a liar, but not a thief. Mr. X is an architecture student doing research. Dan is secretly tutoring Leslie in math. He needs money so he can buy a jacket for Bess. Nancy asks why Dan is always avoiding her. This confused me, because I didn't know he was avoiding her. This is only Dan's second appearance of the book. Anyway, it turns out he's avoiding her, because in 6th grade, he accidentally broke the Drew family's window. And now that Nancy knows who did it, she's gonna have her dad sue Dan for all he's worth. Yes, she will get that $20 back from him. Nancy overhears Craig and Tattoo Man conspiring. They brag about how they stole 24 jackets today. They hide the jackets inside a trash room. Nancy should call the police at this point. She has more than enough evidence to make the charges stick. Instead, Nancy disguises herself and pretends to be a potential buyer. Bess hides in the bushes and takes pictures of Nancy buying stolen jackets. Only Bess screws up. She accidentally uses the flash and the culprits see. The culprits chase Nancy and Bess through the mall. Nancy yells a lot, saying, "Call the police! Call security! Help!" Maybe Nancy should have done that before the sting operation. Her excuse is that she didn't have enough time to call security, which is dumb, because she was the one who set the time for the meeting. She should have asked to meet the culprits in an hour, not 10 minutes from now. Craig and Nancy fight over the camera at the mall fountain. He starts to drown her, but she mule kicks him off of her. That's when Frank arrives and cuffs the baddies. Nancy and Frank celebrate with a date at the arcade. The end. Postbook follow-up. I get the sense this author wasn't familiar with the Nancy Drew characters, as they don't have their usual characterizations. George is boy crazy. She spends the whole book chasing after a guy she doesn't even know. Bess is such an airhead. She rambles about jackets for 2 pages, while Nancy tries to change the topic in vain. Frank is not a good love interest for Nancy. Not as good as Frank Hardy. Every time Nancy and Frank talk, they get interrupted. All their conversations amount to basically nothing. We're told it's okay for Nancy to date Frank, because Ned told her to date other people while he's at college. I don't remember reading that in a previous Nancy Drew book. Besides for Leslie, Nancy doesn't spend much time investigating the suspects. When Craig is revealed as the culprit, it's the first time he's talked in this book. She only talks to Mr. X once, and she talks to Dan twice. More interaction with the suspects would have been nice. Maybe the book had too many suspects? Overall, I didn't like this one, but it didn't actively annoy me like some of the others. The cliffhangers pretend this is a dangerous case, but it's fairly low stakes, as the culprit seems entirely unaware of Nancy's investigation until the very end. I give Nancy Drew Files number 113, Wicked Ways, a 4 out of 10.